I've titled this $100,000 branding and design crash course, and I'll explain why in a second, and a little bit about me. So I'm Scott. I have three little kids, all under 4.5, and then another one on the way in a few months. So my house is not boring at all. And then I'm also a founder of Timewell. Got funding through the first cohort of Founder University. And then also, I've been in branding and design for over 15 years. Partnered at a branding studio. Worked with Rob Beardick, if you're familiar with him, a brand strategy, done a private jet fleet branding, and then a bunch of startups. Startups are our sweet spot, and here is one in Launch's portfolio as well. So the reason why I said $100,000 branding is that if you were to hire my studio for everything I'm about to share, obviously if we're to do this with you, that's more or less what it would cost. So I'm trying to give you the highest level, and I really try to come at this from a founder's perspective of just show me what I need to know and make it really tactical. So that's my whole aim with this. So we'll jump into three parts. First is branding, and then we'll be talking about product design, and then finally, how do you market it? So the first part is, so what is branding? And the two definitions that I like to separate this in between are between brand and branding. The way that brand is best described is someone's gut feeling about your company or service. So it's what they say it is, influenced by multiple experiences over time. And then there's branding, which is the unact of perception design. And so when you talk about your brand, and I'll go into this in a second, you think of Apple. How would you describe Apple? It's not really what they've described it as, but it's you probably taking all these experiences over time, and then you're saying what it looks and feels like. It's essentially your reputation. And also, I see some comments coming in the chat. Jackie, are you able to keep track of these, or Andre? So I'd
Yeah,
love to answer all these at the
yeah.
end.
Do you want we'll keep them for the end then?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Also for Founder University, there was like, I think 20 or so questions, and I actually did like a follow-up deck going through those. So if we get enough, I'd be happy to actually go into in-depth answers. So jumping back in, think of cattle branding like this. So this is an actual shape. And when you were to see a simple shape like this, you already know what ranch this is a part of. And so you can tell a lot about somebody like, hey, don't touch those cattle because that's so and so. And you know so much just by seeing a shape. And that's essentially what we're doing with branding, like shapes and visual identity. But there's so much more than that. So if we go back to a couple examples, I'd love to hear in the chat here, if you were to open this box, tell me about the experience you would expect to have. And I'll go ahead and read out some of the responses I see. Clean and crisp, satisfaction, minimalist, sleek product, high tech, high quality, high end experience, buttery. Spent a lot of money, sexy, excitement. Where do I store it? Awesome. No accessories. So true. So what's crazy is that I'm seeing so many consistent things, but this might be a new one. Obviously, it's not. We know that picture, but just because of past experiences that you have, because they've had this consistency across the board, you know what to expect. Um, and you're telling me a lot about it, even on the premium, the clean, the experience. And so they've done a really good job there. What about this? What type of experience would you expect to see from here? Seamless, seamless. Oh, Andre, I don't know what that says. Fast, seamless with one button, reliable, fast, easy, simple. What's crazy about, yeah, running late, do it simple, expensive on New York, surcharge. That is interesting, especially from New York side. So if you contrast this Uber app, which again, I'm not even saying what you're looking at, so everybody's filling it in because you're familiar with it, is you already can tell me so much about the experience you're having as a whole. And so if I mention Uber, you fill in the gaps of this entire experience end to end. And then the last one, what about this? Yummy, tasty, authentic, yummy, messy, hungry. A lot of hungries, I know. It's lunchtime almost for California people, so you're welcome. Where's the washroom? Yeah. So what's crazy is even seeing this, you can already tell what it would probably taste like by seeing the environment around. You're seeing it's on a styrofoam plate. And if I were to simply take the same food and put it in a tablecloth setting with dim lights, you would probably tell me the experience would be different. And so when you are designing your brand, so what people think about you are pulling in all these previous experiences. So whether you're using certain colors, certain shapes, you're using certain tone, you're using certain photos, is you're pulling in everybody's collective experiences that they've had, and they're making snap judgments about everything you do. So that's why designing perception is super important. Now, if I can give you one thing to focus on of how to think about your brand, it's these two words. The two most important words in branding are differentiation and consistency. So take any of your products. Um, Somebody is going to, unless you are completely one of, nobody else compete with you, which is very, very challenging nowadays. People are going to compare you to something else. And so you need to be able to stand out in the mind and say, I have to go with this company because they do that differently. And then like we saw with all the other examples with Apple and so, it's the same thing over time, over and over and over again. And does this actually work? There is some studies showing, I'll start with the one on the, actually, I'll start with the one on the left, that stronger brands get chosen more often just because of the associations you have. And on the right side, you can see over the past few years, I mean, from 1975, is that intangible assets are growing to what companies are being valued at. And brand is attributed into that intangible space. So when you think of the brand or the value of Apple as a whole, it's obviously so much. But if you look at a lot of where brand kind of goes into, it's very muddy, but that keeps growing in that space. And then a couple more points on making this, driving home the value is from Sir Richard Branson, the way a company brands itself is everything. It will ultimately decide whether a business survives. So let's take it back and make it a little tangible. When somebody comes to us and they say, "Hey, I need a new brand at our studio," what they're typically thinking is, "I need a flag on top of a hill." And then let's go into, well, let's look at what does that really mean. I need a logo, the visuals, my personality, tone of voice. Then I ask, well, how are you going to use it? Of course, maybe website, your product, anything in marketing. And then if I ask, well, how do I know if this is right? Should I make it really loud? Should I cuss? Should I do something a little more extreme? Then I'm getting down to this level of something deeper, which is who are you at the core? So your purpose, your mission, your values, your company culture, and all that. I won't go into this in depth, but I wanted to give you this tool. These phrases are thrown around a lot, and so it's helpful to know as you're discussing with your team of staying completely aligned with each other. So there's your purpose. This is your motivation to build beyond money. There's your vision, which is a clear future scene of success. There's your mission, so how you'll make your vision real. There's your values, how you'll find your people. Your look and feel, how you'll interact, how people will interact with you, and your goals and tactics. So this is your specified aligned plan. I'll give you another quick cheat sheet. So when we start any brand engagement, that's really what we're trying to do, is to answer all those questions. But where there's constantly a dance between these three pieces, which is you. So I want to know, well, what's your one-liner? What's in your background that makes you uniquely qualified? And then what makes you unique? And then your competitors. All right, what are they doing? I don't spend too long looking at competitors because I want to be so much more obsessed about the customers. But they are a big part of positioning. So how do they position their offering? Like their strengths, weaknesses. How do they present themselves? And then finally, the best, your customers. Who are your customers, and what do you know that others don't? What's your customer's problem and deeper pains? So let's say for like Uber, for example, you might say, hey, they need a better taxi. Is that really it? Or are they needing more time instead of waiting outside? And so they need to be able to get their vehicle faster and more efficient. I need tracking and I don't want to have to do a change. And so you're taking all these pieces, and the deeper pains are all those extra pieces in there. And so you understand that better than anyone else. And then how do you help your customers better than your competitors? So some action steps here are to identify your unique identifiers. So to make it really easy for someone to say, hey, this company does X. And then your visual identity. So this is your visuals, your colors, your overall essence and vibe. And then there's a plan for consistency. So making sure you have guidelines and you have somebody who owns this consistency. Also, I have a tractor going by my office right now. So if it gets really loud, apologies for that.
We can't hear anything. No worries.
Okay, good. I was like, can't even hear myself. Also, I've seen a couple questions about presentation. I'm using Keynote on a Mac. This is by far the most incredible presentation tool. And yeah, I feel like I want to do a whole presentation on just using it. Sorry, give me just 1 second. It's gonna get really loud. All right, so I'll go through this one really quick. Feel free to screenshot this page if you want. Again, you can steal any of this. I'll make sure you have the deck afterwards, so if that's easier. These questions are ones that I answer nearly every single time when I'm working with a company. So what's your one-liner? What makes you unique? What's your customer's problem and deeper pains? How do you help your customers better than your competitors? I'm not necessarily focusing that question on features, but how do you help them? We'll get into that later. Why are you personally motivated to solve this problem? How does the world look different after you solve this? And that's great on that vision statement. So Microsoft's vision state or old one was a computer on every desktop and every home. And what I love about that is that it gives a clear picture of what will actually be different. How are you going to deliver the best experience? What's your personality? What feelings would you want your customers to have by working with you? Why would a new employee want to work for you? How are you going to be a 50+ year company? And why would people tell others about you? So by answering a lot of those questions, you will have a better, clearer picture of who you are and how you're different, and also that common vision that everybody in your company can be aligned behind. And how do you then tell that story? This has by far been the easiest way of communicating everything from marketing to product. And anytime I need to talk about anything with customers, is there's these three pieces. So this first part is the customer's problem is the enemy to be conquered. So in any of your messaging, you want to be aligned with them to say, this is so bad. This problem here that you have, this takes you way too long. Back to Uber, taxis are a pain. And you keep going into, hey, this is a really bad problem for all these reasons. And they say, yes, I'm so glad somebody finally understands my pains. And then next is the customer is the hero. So you want to say, we've made it easy for you to solve this problem. And everything about it is we're supporting you. And then finally bring in the last one is your brand is the supporting character. So I mean, think about it for anything. Think of any pain in your own life. And if somebody were to say, hey, I know that really sucks, and here's why, and I know it really intimately, and I've made a really cheap and easy and simple process to make that better. Like, how is that not the most ideal way? It's like, here, take my money that you know my problem just worse or more than I do. Now, then how do you go out into the market? So naming is so challenging. I'll just say it. I know everybody's probably struggled with it. It is the most challenging part of all of the branding process for us. But here's a quick cheat sheet. Starting with this exercise, I like to call it the loud party test. So think of if you're in a loud party and somebody says, oh, what do? And you say, I'm the owner of blank and we blank. If your name is like, has so many weird characters and you say, hey, it's, you know, I'll say launch. It's like launch, but it's got two N's and it's .io. And you're having to say that every single time. So you always think about how long that takes you to say it's launch with two N's .co. That's if somebody asks you what's the name of your company, that is the name. It's the whole thing. And so in short is a better name is better than a good name is better than a good domain. Now, if you can find one that is you have the .com, that's awesome. .coms are still super, super important. However, I wouldn't jeopardize the name at the early stage. So quick tips on how to do this is pull from your brand's essence. So meaning, okay, all the pieces of who am I? What are we trying to do? Everything we already talked about in the previous pages. My brand, or actually my startup is called Timewell, and it came off of this idea of being able to help families better connect with each other through prompting each other for stories. So if I show you a photo and then I record you talking about that, or think about your parents, your grandparents, your kids, now I have this sweet captured moment in time that I can dip back into. So essentially time well. It's also use your time well while you're here. And so that's like pulling from your essence. Next, keep it short and simple, concise, easy to pronounce, easy to remember. Ensure relevance clearly relates to your product or service, avoiding generic or overly descriptive terms. Sometimes I can see where it's good to make it really clear, but sometimes it kind of can make it feel too cheap. Trying to think of another one. Gosh, I can't think of any off the top of my mind, but sometimes a name that's so literal can be really good for SEO because people are going to Google that and you're at the top of the list. But sometimes it pigeonholes you into only doing that. So let's say if Tesla was just like electric cars with a Z at the end, there's a feeling that kind of pulls away from that. So you want to kind of, this is why it's so challenging. Consider cultural, phonetic, and visual appeal. There's an agency that's named companies like Swiffer or BlackBerry or Sonos, and there's a whole science behind even how a word sounds in your mouth that will make you want to use the product more or want to say it more. So if your name consistently is responded to like, oh, that's kind of a weird name, it's maybe a good sign that you could explore something that just feels better. And then last is verify availability. The most challenging parts are domain, social handles, and then trademarks. Some quick tools I use for this is instantdomains.com and then namechecker. I think Instant Domains is the one that will find all the domain extensions that are available and then links you out to maybe where to purchase them so you can see price. And the Namechecker, I believe, is the one for social handles. And so I usually use those when we're working with companies on names. And then the exercise of how to do naming, I use WordHippo. It's one of the best thesauruses. And also ChatGPT to say, hey, give me what are all the words that have to do with space or travel or something like that. And that gives me a lot. I see there's another tool here from Lucas, which a name generator. There you go. All right, moving on. So hopefully it's a lot. Naming is hard. Good luck. If you have any questions, let me know. What about your logo? This one's challenging too. This is the probably most important part of it is your logo, similar to the brand that we saw on cattle before, is a visual identifier. It doesn't need to explain everything you do, but it needs to be clearly and quickly legible at different sizes. That's what I'm showing here, the favicon website logo, app icon, and then billboard. And since the majority of the mobile browsing now is done on mobile devices, that's why it's so important to have it clear when it's small. And if you see a quick contrast, I looked at some best logo designers on 99 Designs and Fiverr. You see what you'll see on the left side, and it's super busy at this small scale. If you look at the companies on the right, which you probably recognize quite a few of them, they have this very similar approach. And I realize the Webflow one's out of date. Is there's some sort of word explaining it, and then there's a visual, some sort of icon that can be separated by itself. And that's helpful for app icons, favicons. And then you also see the colors is that most of them are 2 colors or so, give or take. And this is obviously just a selection or a small group. This is not an end all be all, but as a quick crash course, I would recommend going at this route, making a word really clear, make it have some character, choose a color that is kind of consistent. Don't go super, super colorful. And then keep some sort of icon that can be separated by itself. And you'll see there's a trend over time to go towards this clarity. So over the last, few years, 5 years or so, that there's a simplification happening across the board on everything. Now, I do think what's going to happen is that we're going to swing eventually back and there's going to be a more artistic bend. We're starting to see that in high fashion right now. So while we're swinging this way, eventually it'll swing back. So wherever you're at, but just know this is like a very safe direction. If you're wondering, what should I do? I don't have a branding or design background. Clean and legible is really important. What about colors? I recommend this tool called UIcolors.app. Early stages, I would find one primary color that kind of identifies your visual identity. And so people will recognize your color, your company by its color faster than anything, any words. And they're also gonna have a feeling, excuse me, they're gonna get a feeling of what your company is like just on the color alone. So color is really important. Uh, Again, you have some sort of black. UI Colors, that app gives you a full palette almost. I think it's almost a full 10 shade palette. And this is important for all different button states. And I'll show you the building blocks that I use even when designing time well. You'll see there's some general themes for color. So red can actually make your heart rate increase. So for like more intense, exciting things, you'll see it there. Um, it's more bold. Orange is more typically in like a creative space. Yellow. Also, it's in the same lane as like a red and orange, but it's a little more subdued a little bit. Typically because it's harder to read or it's a lot less legible, it's harder to use. So you have to have like big yellow, like Snapchat's done a great job with that. But you'll see you can't write anything in yellow. So it makes it a little harder. Green can be more on the natural side. You'll see that's like a safe bet for natural. Also, a dark green can be more of like a legacy, clean, elegant option. Blue, a basic line of trust, like in your brain, we'll see blue and automatically have trust. That's why nearly every single bank, institution, or technology has like blue in it. Purple, more in a creative space. And then black is the easiest way if you want to make something feel more high end, just use black. Um, I personally just like it, but you'll see I've also intentionally even done my background like more black. That's a general. The next steps are if your target or if your direct competitor has a color that matches you best, you just kind of have to choose something else. So choose the next best and then make it be your own. If all banks are blue, there's a problem there. So that's why you'll see different banks will use different ones, but it still has to match your personality. And then next with fonts, hopefully this is helpful. I'm going through a lot of stuff. Forgot to preface this. We're doing like drinking from a fire hose to hopefully give a lot of information. Then afterwards, if you need to reference anything, you can. Fonts, I would recommend going to Google Fonts. If you have an Adobe subscription, you can look there. You can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on fonts. At an early stage, I would just look for Google Fonts. Inter is an awesome, safe font for anybody building product. And then tying all that together, if you want to quickly get a, a good style for or defined styles for your whole product, I find building buttons help me do that best because you have to define the colors. So I get to see all those different shades of color that we tied in. You have my fonts, I have icons, I have even the radius. So I went a little sharper on it. And by defining all that, it'll help me style the rest of the platform, which is what I did here. It's a book building tool. And in initial stages, if you do not have a design background, I can't recommend enough using libraries or using pre-built design systems. It'll save you so much time. That's what I do. I usually start with something and then I start modifying as we go, just because it's not worth the time if somebody else has done such a good job building it. So there's no shame in starting from a library. And then the last part, the visuals, is tying it all together. If you're ever working with somebody to help you build your visual identity, ask them for a design style guide. This will help you so in the future you can keep everything consistent. All right, hope everybody is doing well. We'll jump into a quick crash course on product. I see, James, you have a question. I'll answer that one at the end too. So I've been building products since the App Store came out, and I'll share kind of my best practices there. I think I need to skip a slide. There we go. So here's my ultimate goal is to solve someone's problem in an enjoyable way. Again, back to that messaging is that we're here to help somebody else. The better you can understand somebody's problems, the better you can create a solution that they want to buy and pay for. A couple quick stats here are that 73% of mobile app users churn after just 90 days on average. First impressions are 94% design related, back to what I said on color. and 38% of users will stop engaging with the website's content or layout if the content or layout is unattractive. So we see that design is really important on usability. However, on the other side of the spectrum, I'm sure we've all heard this quote: if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, then you've launched too late. So what do you do about this, where you know that design actually helps usability, but then there's also this need to just get feedback fast? So what I want to show you is my process that works at both sides, whether you're at step one with an MVP, or if you are building it years down the road and building it hopefully with a team and sizes you should be. So the first thing I always start with is text-based requirements. This is so much faster to design your product this way, and because you're just focusing on function. And I argue that you should be able to build and design an entire product on a phone call. So just with words, saying when you open the dashboard, you should see these things. And when I go to click on create new, it should pop up a modal and it should give me these options. And if I exit out of this, then it will take me back here. And by you working through all that in text, it's so much faster to work to find out problems and gaps than it is to start building and design or code. And so once I have that, then the next steps is I'll go through and kind of roughly sketch it out. I usually start with some sort of sticky note so I can visualize when this happens and this, and I work out more kinks this way because I like seeing it visually. And then I do really, really rough wireframes, and I kind of make them intentionally ugly on purpose, just because I'm solely focused on function, not on design yet. Then once I know that the function works, I've talked to users and we've nailed down, yes, this flow makes a lot of sense, and they filled in the gaps. In both of these stages, I talk to users. I'm interviewing them constantly, I'm checking in with them. And then finally is the polished designs. So this is where I pull in the design system, the colors, the fonts. I basically just kind of reskinning the wireframes is really the end goal. And then you have the documentation at the front. So you already have function already built in. So this final stage is really just the grand finale. And then a quick crash course on UI, UX, so user interface, user experience, best practices. And I pulled this from Refactoring UI, which is a great resource. These are specifically kind of designed towards people who do not have a design background, so more engineers usually appreciate these. So first one is start with what feels like too much white space. And you're seeing this space in between or padding around the outside. I can quickly to see if a product was designed by a developer, if everything is really tight. And in the same way that we talk and take breaths in between different sentences is the same way that your product should have spacing in there. So think of like grouping stuff that's together. You also see there's hierarchy of where it says set up two-factor authentication is bold, and then in the text below is a couple points smaller, as well as it's in gray. And so it helps me skim better. And then next is simplify where possible. So you'll see on the left side, this is super logical. You have name, put the name, job title, and then what it is, email, email. We all know what a phone number and email is. And so we can strip those out and then simplify it. So the less content you can have on the page, the better. And in the same vein is prioritize the values. So on the left side, most of the time when I ask, what do you see first? It's heart rate, the actual word heart rate. And on the right side, what do you see is 82 beats per minute. When you're looking at how can I best help you do your job better if you're working in a hospital, that's what I want you to see first, because you're in this world, so you know what the number and BPM is. And so I want to surface that faster. Again, it's all these little things that you tie together to where customers can say, wow, it just is so easy to use. And it's because you're surfacing the right values or helping somebody skim. People don't want to read, they don't want to think, they just want to use your product and get back on with your life. So the better and faster I can have them use my product and dip out is actually making it more valuable. Next is the clear primary action. Every time I've asked this, I get the same answer. I said, what's the first thing you see on this page? And it's usually this delete listing button. It's a big red button. Your eye gravitates towards that. However, I believe that's wrong because I want to make the primary thing that you see is adding and contributing and making your platform more valuable. So if I contrast it to the one on the right side, publish is the most bold thing that I'll see. And you should essentially be able to guide somebody through just primary buttons to your site, followed by secondary. That's why button hierarchy is really important. So as a basic principle, I try to make it really easy to add stuff and make my platform more visible or more valuable. And then if it's like delete, remove, I still have it because it's important, but I definitely subdue it a little more. Again, make it super easy to do the right action. And then last part on the visuals here for the button styles is the hierarchy of styles. So you'll see there's a primary, secondary, and tertiary styles, and they follow the same, like filled, outlined, and then maybe just the underline or just text. A little bit in the weeds here, but it does make a big difference as you're building your product. And then last one is don't stretch your content too wide. So if you made the mistake like me in booking your movie tickets late and you're sitting in the front, it's just uncomfortable to have something that's so wide. And so you want to keep it within a reasonable amount. All right, final stretch here is marketing. One thing that we didn't specify in the beginning is that I'm kind of going through this quickly because some of the most valuable feedback I've heard of this session is I will give you feedback on your website. And so we'll do that in a little bit. And the website is probably one of the best ways to pull everything together, because typically what you're doing is showing your visual identity, you're showing your positioning and messaging, you're showing how you tell a story. We're seeing if you're focusing on high conversion, and I'm also seeing your product. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I want to show you the way that we approach building websites. First quote from Seth Godin is, don't find customers for your product, find products for your customers. So even the way that you're positioning this, again, is saying, here is solving your problem best. For a basic structure of above the fold, so before you start scrolling, first landing on a page, I'm looking obviously at just desktop, mobile's a little different, is this tool from marketingexamples.com. Has been really, really helpful. So this is the kind of a framework that I'll use whenever I'm looking at somebody's site, because this works. This is like the tried and true way of building a site. You can arrange it different, but it should have all these elements. So the first is explain the value that you have in the title, or the value that you provide. So this isn't this is a software to or SAT software, something like that. That's really abstract. What you're doing is, again, positioning it in a way for the user. So ace the SAT with just 10 minutes of studying a day. If that's all you had and some sort of button as a call to action, if you are going to the right person, they will click on that, because that's exactly what they want. Again, you know their problem and you're saying this is the easiest thing to solve your problem. But next is, you make this big, bold claim, you have to back it up. Next is explain how you'll create it. So this example is 10-minute micro lessons designed to boost confidence and make SAT strategies easy to remember. Awesome. Well, my next question is, well, how does it work? And so I want to see it. The best is a video. The next best is some sort of visualization, whether it's your product shot. Those are the two best ones, because you want to show the solution. If you don't have it, well, let me go on that really quick. At this stage, if you do not have a fully fleshed out product, I would fully support you going on Upwork or Fiverr, or finding some sort of visual designer if you don't have one, and having them create a beautiful visual mock-up of your product, if it's even still in flight or still in build, just to be able to say, this is what it will look like. If your whole business is a little more than software, you definitely can get away from that. The best visuals are showing what the product is being used, or how it's being used successfully. So we did, again, that private jet company. So we're having a picture of this jet up in the air, because that's what success looks like for this product to be used, is flying. And so it looks beautiful, and tying it all together. So if you don't have product or video, then you can show visuals, and even like Midjourney, like an AI tool, is really great. But show the product or experience being used successfully, so somebody can picture themselves using it. Next is make it believable. Social proof. I mean, we all know Amazon, that's why they drive home reviews first and foremost, because people are crazy and we just want to see, is anybody else doing this? Like I do want to do this, but I kind of want to follow the crowd as well. So we all do it. And so make social proof there. If you have one quote put it up, that one quote. If you have a lot of people with reviews, and use stars. People like stars. They like to see number. So a lot of stars and then number of people using it. If you have like less than 10, it does look a little weak to say 5 stars out of 5 people. And so maybe you can adjust that. Maybe just put quotes up. And then last is make the call to action really easy to use. So there's this get started for just one button. You can have get started, sign up now, request a demo. I would keep it kind of short, but I would make it clear about what you're doing. And then I would have the same button always up in the top header. Not always, near most of the time, it's super easy to have it just at the top header and then throughout the same fill the primary button is the same call to action. Maybe you have other buttons throughout. It's kind of a lot. Hopefully you're not drowning right now, but I'll give you one more breakdown on website tool. If you're wanting to start, so okay, maybe I need to revisit my website. How do I how should I structure this thing? Again, templates are an amazing way to start if you can. If you're building your product, like you have a double-sided marketplace, sometimes you don't have the luxury of that. But if you're building like a marketing page, which then link out to your product, this could work. Obviously, there's exceptions for everything. This is a good, just general best practice. So you have your logo at the top left or logo centered. You have your navigation at the top if needed, and then your call to action button. Next, you have the whole thing we just covered here, the headline, the how it works, call to action, social proof, visual. Then more social proof. So here's more quotes from people. That's the first thing I would want to show is people really love this. The next I get into the benefits, back to what we talked about messaging. I'm solving your problems. I'm solving your problems, solving your problems. Another call to action. So do you want to go for it? Yes. And sometimes people don't click it. If you look at what buttons people click, they sometimes will scroll all the way back up and hit the top one, but you're driving home what I want you to do the whole way down. Next, go into how it works. So go into more detail, explain more about maybe it's your background, what unique angle you have, more social proof, some frequently asked questions. I would, with frequently asked questions, I would literally take what people have asked you. I think sometimes there's a feeling of here's the questions I'd want you to ask. But on all your sales calls, just put those questions in and put answers into them, and then finally call to action. Basic crash course. I've been working on learning this for, again, over the last decade, and I've been trying to put together way more resources like this for free at brandatlas.com. So a little plug for, I'm just trying to gather a resource that I wish I had years ago. So I'm in the process of creating a crash course or like a really detailed guide on websites. So you can find that there. And then last couple slides, just more about me. If you're at all interested in working together or just learning more, or I just started this, my last session is doing a private brand review. So just for launch, normal $500 hour session is down, or 500 is down to 99 bucks. Feel free to email me and then we can talk through more what that looked like. But basically going through anything we've talked about, but for your own company. Or if you want to work together on a different level, happy to chat through that. And then last is a fellow founder. You can take a look at my products at timewellbooks.com. I've wanted a way to capture family stories. And so I've done that in printed books. So you can create custom ones and then actually hear your family's recorded voice through a printed book. With that, we did it. I went through a lot. Hopefully everybody's ears aren't falling off. But now it's your turn. And I'm very happy to hear that was an informative session. So the next, I think we have a little under 20 minutes. And how many questions do we get? We only
Yeah,
got a couple.
we have a couple questions. You answered a bunch of these as we went through.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're open to it, I know this part is super fun, but doing
Yep.
some landing page takedowns.
Yep. Can I see are they all in the Q&A section?
They are, so they'll
Okay.
be in the chat. If you're sending them, let's wait. We'll do a countdown and then we'll send them. That's how we did it last time. I think that works
Yeah.
best.
Count
Scott?
count 3, 2, 1, and then everyone drop their thing in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
everyone get
We'll wait.
your URLs ready. And so if it works for you, Scott,
Yep.
we'll do. Yep.
Can I answer these questions really quick? See if I can, and then we'll go into the websites just because there's
Sure. Yeah. I can field them for you as well.
Okay.
So one question that came up was is it okay to have two name formats? Say one on their social media, like a Twitter handle or X now, or Instagram. This founder's having a challenge with a defunct company is holding a URL or like a domain name that they want.
Yep. Yeah, there's unless your pockets are empty or unless you have bottomless pockets, basically you just kind of sometimes get what you can. Sometimes it's good to have the same, but it's okay, especially for social handles. People will usually just search for you, so make sure that it's easy. Basic thing for social is I always like having my name first and then some sort of extension afterwards. So instead of like go launch, I would just do launch and then have the extension, because even in the search results, it'll usually prioritize the actual name of your company first.